from the accounting end is no code, meaning we're not coding in transactions, right? There's no code where
I don't have to know code to know code.
You don't have to know code to know code.
Hello and welcome. This is another bonus episode of the Sons of CPAs, sons and daughters of CPAs. I don't have any kind of written intro. I know this is still about moving the industry forward. So we've got two guests today, both from the GrowthLab. We've got Steven Byler.
The GrowthLab. I haven't heard that one too much.
I like it.
Looks like the Facebook, right?
The Facebook.
It's the
or
GrowthLab
Twitter.
now. Heather is the, and GrowthLab is still the GrowthLab. But Heather gave you the preposition. Heather brought.
I
this
bring the
preposition.
to the table. Okay.
Heather Satterly. Can we have a big round of applause for Heather?
Yeah.
So I have a question about the sons of CPAs, and you said daughters of CPAs. So do you have to actually be a son or daughter of a CPA to come on the show? Because I am that.
If you are.
I am.
Then yes, you are honorary. That is awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, my mom is a CPA. Yes.
Well, please, Heather, introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. Okay. I'm Theo Pratt's daughter. That's me. I'm Theo Pratt CPA's daughter, Heather Satterly. I love accounting. I love helping clients. I love technology. I am the former founder and owner of Satterley Business Solutions, which included Satterley Accounting Services and Satterley Training Consulting. And now I am the Chief Innovation Officer at GrowthLab.
Ooh, I love that title.
Yeah, I love it too. I love that name. And I actually love the team.
It's like CIO. It's almost like Chow.
Oh, you're talking about the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we came up with that, I think, over dinner, right, Heather?
We did. Yeah. We're like, what do we call me? And I'm like, I really like this. So
CIO.
CIO.
Can you do it with a lowercase I? That would just look cool.
It would look cool.
CIO, Chow. It kind of looks like Chow a little bit. So we digress. We still also have another guest here, the president of the newly named The GrowthLab, Steven Byler. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I'm the imposter here. I am not a son of a CPA. So I will either take that with me to the grave or get kicked off the show, I guess. But
you're not going to get kicked off. You're a metaphorical son of a CPA. You're the next generation.
There we go. No,
the
I
next
think
generation.
Dan, who's been on with you before, Dan and I started GrowthLab about 8 years ago, and I do not have a accounting background at all. I do have a startup background and love working with companies to figure out how to get them off the ground. That's how I got into this business, into this space. And from day one, it was about helping customers figure out how to grow. And we'll get into it more, but like bringing Heather's team into GrowthLab and brings a whole nother dynamic to how we can help customers, help businesses get off the ground.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this yesterday, and I think the GrowthLab is a model, one of the few models of a, successful firm that's doing it differently in this kind of new era, new generation, and it's quick to adopt, quick to recognize that change is needed across the board and help promote what you guys are doing to a broader audience too. It's not, you're not just keeping it all to yourselves. You guys had your own, the Raw Take for CEOs podcast. And I don't know if you still record that, but then you also have another new one too, the FaaS Evolution. Which,
we do like the podcast world. We learn a lot from it, and we want to share a lot in the space. We have not yet sunsetted the Raw Take. We have put a little bit on hiatus because we focus on the FaaS Evolution, and the team is actually probably pick your brain a little bit, Scott, on some of this, but the team's actually working on kind of adding to what will go into the feed for the FaaS Evolution, because we are passionate about finance as a service, and I know we get a bunch of flack for talking about finance as a service, what it is, what we mean by productizing FP&A.
You only get flack from the haters.
Oh, I know.
Only from the haters. And you know what? They all come around. You guys, if you're future forward the way that you are, eventually everybody gets it. So
I love your productization podcast the other day.
So, but there's another podcast that might be on hiatus. I'm not sure, but Heather, you're the other half of a couple of things that you have going on. You've got, tell us a little bit more about, oh man, I just like lost my voice for a second. I don't know. I need some water. Tell us about your other extracurricular activities.
My extracurriculars. So I do we don't really call it a podcast. We call it a webinar series. I do a webinar series called the Appy Hour with Liz and Heather, and I am the Heather and the Liz and Heather. And my really good friend and colleague, Liz Scott, who is a brilliant accountant and technologist in Oklahoma, she and I started in 2008 because we're fellow accounting technology geeks. And when we met, we instantly realized we had the same brain and the same love of automation and technology. And so we found, as we became friends, that we were on Zooms all the time showing each other really cool technology and ways to use technology that are kind of outside the box. And so we decided that probably our accounting peers wanted to kind of have that conversation with us too. So the Appy Hour was born. It started once a month, then twice a month, and now we seem to be doing it every week. But we bring technology. Some of our well-known accounting tech names have been on the show, but we also bring on new tech that we find that we think is really interesting and really is going to make a big impact in the accounting industry. So it's definitely a labor of love, and it's just so much fun to work with Liz, and
it shows. Yeah. I think it's genius the way that you pair up different drinks. You guys make the drinks, talk about the drinks and the app. I think it's genius. I love it. I didn't know you guys were doing this or had some like connection for 14 years too. That's a long time, right?
Well, Liz and I have been friends since 2018. So it's been like 5 years.
Oh, I thought you said 2008.
No, 2018. Yeah. So
wow.
It's actually funny. I adore Liz, but I remember the first time I met.
5 years plus a COVID couple years, which kind of counts for like 2 or 3. So say 8 years, maybe.
You could say 8 years. It feels like I've known her my whole life. So
you got any fun stories from that? Do you guys ever get too drunk sometimes?
No, I mean, I think not on the show. No, I'm thinking back. I'm trying to think back. I know at one point there's been times where Liz and I have been too busy to get to the liquor store to get the ingredients for our drinks. And so, you're hearing this exclusively here. So there are times where she and I have run down to the corner store to get a colored Gatorade. And we put that in the glass to say, here, we made the drink, because of just time restraints. But we try to make the drinks and have it be the real deal. But
so our listeners know, if they're looking, you might not even be getting drunk there. It
might be drinking a Gatorade. Yeah. You just never know. So
you guys are just fun individuals. You don't need the drinks to lube up and to kind of get talking,
Right.
Yeah. And well, you also did the Accounting Automations podcast. Is that hiatus as well?
So we've been on hiatus, and we just started. Brian Clare, who's also a fellow accounting technology.
Also a guest on Sons of CPAs. He's had his episode. Yeah.
I love Brian. Brian and I were doing the Accounting Automation podcast, and we did take a brief hiatus. I don't know if you know, but he's had 2 kids pretty quickly. And so we were taking a little break, but we were just recently talking about bringing it back to life. So, cool. So we'll see. We'll have to. I
just saw it recently on the Earmark Network. So you got a previous episode on there that any listeners, you can go there and hop there and check it out. Get some CPE for that. Maybe we can get the Appy Hour on there somehow.
We've talked about making Appy Hour into a podcast, and the issue that we have with it is that in almost every episode we're demonstrating product, right? We're in a product, we're actually showing how it works, and I think that would be hard to do on a podcast.
Table that. We'll talk about that later. Let's pivot and talk about this new announcement that just came out last week, right? Drum roll for our listeners if they haven't heard yet. Satterley Accounting. I think we already alluded to it, but you have joined forces with GrowthLab, and now has birthed the GrowthLab.
The GrowthLab, yes.
The GrowthLab. I'm gonna hear that from Dan. Yeah, no, we're super pumped. Dan and I have been growing GrowthLab Financial Services, now GrowthLab FaaS. We'd like to call it Finance as a Service, and we will hear that from some pushback from the haters, as you say, Scott. But it made a lot of sense to join forces, have Satterley Accounting Services, Satterley Training and Consulting, join forces with GrowthLab. One of our goals, as Dan and I were sitting down last August, looking at our own goal deployment plan. We do that with our customers, but looking at our own goal deployment plan was to continue to grow, obviously. And one of the ways that we're more actively looking to grow is to be a safe haven for practice owners looking to focus more on delivering value and less on managing a business. And think of it as people that are successful enough that they're limited by their own success, right? And I think Heather, like that. So bringing you and your team over here, for us, it was about being able to grow our service lines, but also right now we're in the midst of the Great Resignation and trying to find people. I think we've been pretty successful, but when you can find a person like Heather, when you find a team like the Satterley service team, and bring them all on board, it hits on multiple pieces of the goal deployment plan. One, we're expanding our business, we're expanding our services. Two, we're bringing on great talent. And yes, there's a book of business comes along with it, but this is less about the book of business, more about what we can do together and the leverage that we
You
can
also
get
need more females at the table. You need another perspective. You guys didn't really have that with your management team. I don't think so. You do now.
No,
I
actually,
commend you for that.
Thank you. No, we did one of our questions on our annual review with all of our team members was about diversity. And ironically, across the business, we've got good gender diversity, but on the management team, it's a bunch of white guys. So thank you, Heather, for joining us for that too.
Well, at least you brought in a white girl, right? Well, Heather, what do you think? Obviously, this seemed like a good idea to you. Did you have any hesitations at first?
Yeah, well, I mean, at first when you mentioned, I'm like, no, I'm good, because I honestly hadn't even occurred to me to join.
It had to have occurred
another
a little bit because our peers have been doing that quite a bit recently.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had been noticing that people were doing it, but it wasn't something that I was actively pursuing. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Sure.
And I was where we were as a team is we had grown. We're a team of 7. And honestly, I've been spending so much time running the firm that it's taken me away from the things that I really love to do, which is the process optimization, a lot of ideation and coming up with new ways to serve clients. When you're running a practice, you're really in it. Like you're in the day-to-day, you're helping the clients, you're putting out fires, you're growing, you're cultivating your team, you're supporting your team, and all those things are really awesome. But I feel like my true love and my, I don't know, superpower, as you will, is that process optimization and finding solutions for hard problems. And so I wasn't, I was spending some time doing that, but I was spending more time just managing the business, which is fun, but that's not my passion.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of business owners get there. They either get stuck there or it's hard. It's hard to transition out of a lot of things that you're used to doing or that you're accustomed to doing and you don't want to hand off or, whatever that might be. But then it eats into your passions too. I can definitely relate to that at my firm. I've almost become apathetic to a lot of things that I've wanted to be excited about. Take some self-reflection to realize what you want and what direction you want to go in. So let's kind of talk about the forecast of the future, right? So in order for 2 different people to work together successfully day to day, I think they have to have aligned values and alignment with their long-term goals and visions. So was that part of the play here? Do you guys have some
Definitely. I think
synergies there?
That's a good point. I think it was 8 years ago when you were kind of getting settled in Rhode Island. We were starting the business in Rhode Island. We met, we talked. I think Todd Robinson was, we had drinks over. Actually, we drank, what was it, CPA, IPA? IPA for CPA?
CPA, IPA. It was CPA, IPA. Yeah.
And we've built a relationship over the last 8 years. So coming into this, it's not like we just had to get to know you or just looking at this as a book of business or a set of contracts. It's really like, what can we do together? How can we leverage Heather? How can Heather leverage GrowthLab? How can Heather's team leverage GrowthLab? So we do see a lot of synergies, Scott, and the what does the path forward look like? We have started Satterley, powered by GrowthLab, is our new business, all about process improvement, no code accounting, low code accounting, being able to have Heather and Katie do their thing, teach our team how to do their thing, and continue to help customers get out of their own way, get their data out of their own way so that they can grow their business.
So geography, obviously, did that play a part into this?
I guess I would say, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I guess it could. I mean, I don't know that it did. Like, I never really stopped to think about, well, what if you were in California or, you're in Denver. You guys have a presence in Denver now, but I don't know. I mean, I've known Dan and Steven for a long time. We've known each other for 8 years. I've always admired what they've been doing. I think that the thing that really struck me after I had that conversation with Dan on that fateful day was, I went back and I looked at their website, and I was going through their website, and it was like looking in the mirror. That's what it felt like. It was like I was looking in the mirror, but looking in the mirror, like ahead, like fast forward 5 years with a team of 35 people, with having everything built out and having that really strong infrastructure. And so that was like, wait a minute, I need to stop what I'm doing and like actually consider this, because with what we've developed internally in Satterley, and what they've already, our cultures are so similar, and what they've already created over the past 8 years, they have a really strong foundation for us to bring in these new ideas and processes that we've developed over the last 5 years. With their infrastructure and their team and our ideas, that we're just going to be able to, make a lot of traction quickly. It's
like what you could have done by yourself on steroids, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like what would have taken me.
GrowthLab is the performance enhancement drug of choice for firms.
Right.
Heather, as we've gone through like the first, today's day 5, right?
Day 5
of bringing the teams together. Just on a observational note, we look at some of where we were 5 years ago and how we operated 5 years ago and how I operate today. It's some of it's self-reflection, and it's like, I'm so glad that we have a RevOps team, right? I'm so glad that we have a marketing team. We didn't have that. It was Dan and I, right? And we were limited by our own selves. And I'm just super excited for the leverage that we can get out of, like, what do we do with our business? Do we even continue in the accounting space? Like, should we expand? Like, we run businesses well. Should we go build other businesses? And we made a conscious decision to stay in the accounting space and build it and continue to grow it and figure out what are the core competencies we need. And one of the ones that digital marketing people have to be core competencies of any accounting firm. And one thing that we don't have yet as its own like dedicated function was human resources, HR, business partner. And one of Heather's team members, though she's not doing it right now, she's doing more bookkeeping, but has like years of experience with that. That's going to be a great add to our team. So there's not just synergies on what we can do together in developing new lines of business or growing lines of business, but also bringing the teams together to build the foundation.
Reinforce the strengths, make each other stronger too.
Yeah, no, as we
joining forces,
as we grow, every company out there right now it's hard to hire. It's hard to find. It's its own sales effort to recruit, hire, onboard. So being able to have some dedicated resources to that, especially as we hit 45 people, is huge.
So if this were like the Avengers, then which Avenger are you? Which one is Dan and which one is Heather? So I'm going to let Heather answer her own. You can answer yours, and I'll answer Dan's. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't go first. I have to think about this. This is an important question.
It's a very important question.
I don't know.
It's a very important question.
Of this. Yeah.
I know.
I don't even know if I want them all to be able to answer that question.
Oh, you know who the characters are. Come on. I mean, you're not Thor.
I want to, so.
You can be a male or female. It doesn't matter.
I want to be Doctor Strange. I think that's I think that's the one I picked. Like, he does all that cool magical stuff, and he can jump from like dimension to dimension.
And that's what you are with the coding, with I love it. I love the choice there. So Heather Strange.
What do you think I am?
Heather Strange. So I want to say, the, this is a good question. I want to call Dan Tony Stark because that's how his persona, that's how that's how he rolls. And I think you're Spider-Man.
Oh,
Steven, I think you're Steven
Yes.
Spider-Man.
Look at
Yes,
that.
you are. You're
Yeah,
Spidey.
you are. You're the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's fantastic.
Unassuming,
like
but
that.
man, can he do a lot of things. He's yeah. He's
So we bring
Spider-Man's
Tony Stark.
always a crowd favorite too. Always a crowd favorite. So that's what you got to do. So you got to acquire different strengths. And Avengers, they all have their own strengths. I'm not a huge Avengers fan per se, but I was going to use Captain Planet, and that's just I don't even know anything about Captain Planet, so I pivoted to Avengers. Joining forces, obviously, they're a lot stronger and then kind of make up for each other's weaknesses too.
I think our Slack icons are going to change, Heather.
Oh, I think so too.
Gonna have to
Did you notice I added a Slack icon of my cat?
I did not.
Ooh,
You have to look, well, one of my cats.
cool.
So yeah.
I guess we don't have to get too in the weeds here, but what does no code or low code even mean?
So low code or no code, I think there's a couple of that. Well, I'm going to give you my definition, but then I'm also going to give you a variation on the definition. Does that work?
Go for it.
Okay. So low code, no code means that you're not using raw code when you're building integrations and applications. So you're not going in, you're not writing Java, you're not writing HTML, you're not doing all that stuff, right? You're using a UI, right? User interface to create apps. So you're building automations and applications without the use of code. And a variation on that.
GUI, a graphic user interface, or just a user interface?
Well, a graphic user interface. It's pretty, and you can drag and drop and do all of the things that. So I don't have to know code, but I can build an app, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other way to look at it from the accounting end is no code, meaning we're not coding in transactions, right? There's no code where
I don't have to know code to know code.
you don't have to know code to know code, right?
Ooh,
So
that's a
yeah,
good
so
one.
we got it there. So I think that there's a couple different ways to look at it. When I think of no code, I'm thinking of, using no code as far as I don't have to know how to code, and I'm going to build something so I don't have to code. So there you
But
go.
you know what you want to see and what you want to happen. So if you think it might be possible, and that's what
That's
you're
exactly
doing
right.
is figuring
That's
out
right.
if it's possible.
That's exactly right.
How many of these steps can I remove from this process
How many steps?
with automation? No, that's not even a question. That's what you would.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Yeah,
Like
that's
when you
exactly
look at
right.
this, yeah, that's I've just spent X amount of time doing this, and I know these steps are going to be repeated. So at what point in a process do you start looking at that? When you're in the middle of it or afterwards? So think about, you get a new client, and maybe you start working on it for a couple months, or do you right out the gate say, what kind of things can we automate? Like, what's your process?
Can I take a stab at this, Heather?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's at least for me, and we're still getting to know this space, but it's less about the no-code part. It's more about that process optimization, process improvement. Because if you're a small business, a small startup, you can just take things off the shelf and put them together, put QuickBooks in the middle, and you're good for the next $2, $3, $10 million worth of growth, right? But when you bring on people, when you bring on different things, eventually you're going to need to take it to another level. Sometimes companies just jump to, I need to go from QuickBooks to NetSuite, right? Or I need to go from QuickBooks to this, to that. But before you do that, you say, what is my process? Because if you jump to NetSuite, like, it's not going to solve your software doesn't solve your problems. Actually, it can create a lot of freaking problems. It's really about, what is the process? What do I need? And then how do I get there? And then the no code, low code comes in on top of that as part of the execution of, here's my current state. Here's my future state. Here's where I need to go. How do I get there? Here's my current tech stack. Here's a possible future tech stack. How do I get there? And then the no code, low code can be part of getting there, part of the execution, part of the automation, where you were going, Scott, of like, how do I take all these steps out of there?
So part of it's internally. So interfacing things that you can automate, things that you do internally. Do you do it for clients at all?
Oh yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
like the whole process optimization that's more of like a consulting piece, right? And then the execution is getting it all done.
Mm-hmm. So we split our engagements into different phases, and every single one of them starts with a discovery. So the discovery is getting to know the business and understanding what are their end goals. So what are the objectives? Are they spending too much time? A big one that I see is we're putting this information into two different systems. We have people that are taking time to manually key in information into a system for maybe a CRM, and then they're putting it into their accounting system. And they know that that's not efficient. And they're looking for a solution where they can have one, point of entry for their data, and the data will basically go where it needs to go so that the people within the organization have access to it in a useful way. So when we first go into a company that has identified that they need, or we've identified if they're an existing client that they need, we go into the discovery and we look at their process. And it always starts with an interview. What are your pain points? What are the things that you're spending your time on? What is the information you wish you had at your fingertips when you need it, right, on demand? And we observe. And then once we do that piece, we figure out, what do they really like about what they're doing? So what are the things that they actually really, really like about the current system? What are the things they really hate about their system? And what are the things that they don't know they hate about the system, but they actually hate about the system? Like, what are those things in the middle that they're not aware that they're a problem, but you can see based on our expertise as accountants are a problem? Once we identify
I love that you lead with what they really like too. I don't ever do that. I don't ever ask what people really like about their systems. I just ask what they want to improve on. So I like that you lead with that.
Well, Scott, if you don't ask them, if you don't know what they like, how are you going to know what is going to be a success at the end of, when you're with the end product, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I really do focus on what are the things that are delighters for you, because those are things I'm going to look for in a solution.
Right. So then after you identify all that.
Then after we identify all that, we have a series of different worksheets that we have the client fill out. We have an app evaluation worksheet that kind of goes through, like, what does the solution have to have? Like, if we don't fulfill this, you don't want it. And then what are the things that you would really like to have, right? The delighters. And then we go back as a team. We look at what's out there. So we have a process of going through and looking at different applications that would fit the bill. And it's usually by process, right? Which features are available or not. We start to look at the whole system. So we also look at the complexity of the system. We look at what is the cost to move, right? So if they have an expensive ERP system that they're fully embedded in and they're looking to add automation of a particular process, then we focus on, we need something that's going to fit into this, right? But if it's something like we have a client we're working out with right now that they're overhauling their entire system, like they're basically taking everything and building something new from the ground up, that gives us a lot more license and a lot more flexibility about what we choose. So what we try to do is we break it into phases based on the importance or the need of the client. And I always try to find one thing that's a quick win. So if there's one process, that can easily be implemented, everybody can get up and running quickly and they're going to feel like a success, we go after that first. And we do that because success breeds success. Mm-hmm. And that gets buy-in from the client. It gets buy-in from their team. And they start to get really excited about what's coming next.
So are you using similar solutions for clients, or does it really is it bespoke depending on the client too? Because it sounds like it's very customized approach for that.
It is very customized. It is very customized in my experience with the end user clients. With the accounting firms, that's totally different ball of wax, right? Because we have our secret sauce for that. So we know what works for us.
Yeah. Apps and programs that they're going to be facing and they're going to be interfacing with versus ours. Because that's what made me nervous to hear all of these different apps that you're going to, so it may not, what you're going to use may not change. Because that's providing the solution regardless, right? That's
right.
Okay.
So, what we're using as a team isn't going to change, like our core.
Sure.
But for industry specific, for the specific needs of a client, like we're working with a construction client. Another client is a not-for-profit that's a museum. So they have very different needs, very different apps. But the core, both of those are going to be QuickBooks.
How do you price these engagements. So going back to the tech consulting was kind of what it sounds like. I don't know exactly what you call it, but how do you price those phases?
It depends is the answer. And I don't know.
It's probably a good answer for
It may end up
Right.
changing. Yeah.
Right. It depends.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it does depend. But like everything that we do is value price, package price, and at times it's hard to do that, especially with open-ended projects. But when you are able to kind of break it down into here's the discovery phase, right? That's going to be X for the discovery phase. Then even if I misprice that, my risk is limited to the next 6 weeks of discovery, not the next 6 months of like putting this whole project together and implementing. And customers like that too, because they know what they're signing up for. I'd rather have that conversation all day long than hey, what's with this invoice you just sent me?
Yeah, what you just said, Scott, about scope, that is so important, and that we have to focus on right at each step, which is why we break it into phases, because the discovery is pretty defined in what we're making an evaluation. The implementation, right? And at the end of the discovery, I should say, we make a proposal. We say, here's our recommendations. Mm-hmm. So the discovery is basically define the problem first, research, come up with a couple of solutions, make a recommendation, and then the client basically chooses to go forward with the implementation with us. So that is one service where they get a report. Here's what we found. Here's what your problems were. Here are the suggested solutions. And by the way, here's how much it would cost if you want us to help you through the implementation.
So that gets into, this is more or less project work. And then the other side of it's going to be the recurring, repetitive work, right? So you want your job to be easier on that end of it. And so are you using that as the opportunity to adjust things? Are you going to automate things later as far as your processes, or do you kind of forecast that? How do you determine your pricing for the recurring? And I guess this is more or less a question for both of y'all, right?
You're talking about like the recurring accounting services?
Sure.
Well, one thing just to like observe, right? Like when we talk about what do you do, Heather, right? You didn't mention accounting at all because you don't want to do accounting, right? But part of what we brought into GrowthLab was your whole accounting business, right? And it's solid customers, solid team, and part of the beauty of this is we can fold that right into our accounting infrastructure, our accounting team, similar tech stack, and take all of that basically off of your shoulders, right? You don't have to run the accounting business. You don't have to deal with as many accounting customers. You can focus on what you love, which you can just tell by talking about the detail. Everybody, that's the
professional
playbook.
Innovator now.
Everybody just got the playbook for Satterley Training and Consulting, Satterley powered by GrowthLab. That is the playbook, right? And how to help customers get out of their own way, help them get out of their own data way.
That's right. And yeah, and one of the things I would say too, Scott, is, the reason I even started the accounting firm, because I started Satterley Training Consulting back in 2016 to focus on the automation and that kind of stuff, was because I would say 80% of the clients that I would do the process work with were like, can you do our accounting now?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so it was like, well, I don't do that. So I would refer it out, and then I was like, what am I doing?
It's just part of the flywheel. Yeah. It's just part of, reinforcing your services and making everything better. So right.
And so and that's just another reason that
it was
this
just
is
a matter of time before you added tax. And
right.
now you technically have.
Right. No, we were doing tax. We were doing tax.
Oh, okay.
We were doing accounting and tax. But I mean, the thing is that now we have, this is awesome because now I don't have to do the accounting.
Right.
But I can still offer the solution to these clients that want it. So it's fantastic. I'm just thrilled.
So were you still doing some client work and client accounting work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't hate it. I love it.
No, but it's like, how much more could I be doing? I definitely get
exactly.
that.
Yeah. It's that passion, right? Like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to be doing, right?
Yeah. And you could be good at it and you can like doing it, but it doesn't really wake you up in the middle of the night thinking like, oh, I can't wait to be doing that tomorrow. Right?
And that's what
you got it.
That's what totally got Dan and I jazzed is Heather's passion for what only she can do, and bringing her team into the fold just made so much sense.
Another thing that really attracted me to the GrowthLab team is that there's a lot of young professionals in GrowthLab's team that are really excited about where our profession is going. And that was something that I struggled with as far as finding, I wanted to find the next generation that was going to be really excited about the technology and excited about, all the new innovations that were coming our way. They have a lot of very excited, up and coming accountants that are hungry to learn these skills. So that was really, really exciting to me as well. And, Corey, who is one of the shareholders in GrowthLab, and he's just brilliant. We've been on calls actually for the last 2 weeks because I pulled him into a couple of our projects even before our deal went down. It's just fantastic. He brings so much value to the engagement. It's
Shout out to Corey.
Really,
That's
really,
my
really
buddy.
enjoy. Yeah, I really enjoy working with him. He's a brilliant, brilliant person. And
Yeah, he's fantastic. He actually started working with us when he was in high school.
It's amazing.
And
Wow.
Kept him on through college and brought him on full time. He's a fantastic ad.
He's a good kid. Good kid. So bright future ahead of you guys. Is there anything that you're like real excited about that that you can do now?
I think one of the big things that Dan and I have been focused on, and Dan's taken the lead on, really is getting out there, getting back involved in the industry, and like call it industry integration, for the last probably 8-10 months, and sharing, to your point, Scott, early on, like sharing what we've learned and try to get that back out there, help others for accounting businesses. A lot of people are like Client Accounting Services, CAS. The biggest opportunities is to continue building that industry-facing side of things. And Heather, she's out there talking at conferences. She's got the whole conference circuit planned out for the next 2 years, right? And for us, that's just that allows us to, A, yes, bring in a team, B, bring in a new service line, but C, continue to say, here's where we think the industry is going. Here's what we want. Here's what we're passionate about.
So, Heather, what conferences are you excited about?
Oh gosh, I love conferences. I am excited about Accounting Web. So it's the first one, the one in San Diego. So the Accounting Web Summit. That's
Technically accounting salons before that, and that's kind of like a conference.
It is. It is like a conference. It's kind of like it is. It's a conference.
But
it is a conference. But
it's much more like a tightly held.
it's more intimate.
It's also
Yeah,
exclusive.
it
and
is
I'm part of that
exclusive.
exclusivity
I
now,
know.
so
I'm
I can talk
excited.
about it.
I'm
I'm
excited. Yeah. So we have that first, and I'm super excited. I've got. I can't wait for that. So that's first up, and then we have accounting, and then we have the Accounting Web Summit.
I'll be there too.
And then
yeah.
I'm doing an AGN International Conference the week after that, and then I have a break, and I'm hoping to go. We haven't talked about this yet. I'm hoping to go to AICP Engage because I've never been. So that's one that I would really like to go to.
Yeah, we
I
did
was
not
trying
go
to figure out.
last year. We wish we would have been able to.
Yeah, and I'll just put it out there. Like, I'm totally happy to speak for somebody if they are looking for a speaker. I would do that.
Any other conferences out there that need speakers?
Yeah, Scaling New Heights. We're going to do Scaling New Heights. I think Liz and I are planning to go to ZeroCon this year. Yeah,
we'll be at GrowthLab will be at Carbon X as well.
Yep, Carbon X. If there's a QuickBooks Connect, I would hope to go to that. That's all I'll say.
Oh, cool. All right. I do want to touch on, we talked a lot about the positives. What are some things that are going to be challenges coming up too? Like that you foresee is going to be difficult? Maybe something that you haven't spoken about yet that we can get exclusive here on air. Yeah. What are your worries?
I think that, I guess I don't really have any long-term worries. I think that, whenever you're changing.
You still have your rose-colored glasses on?
Whenever you're integrating, there's bumps, right? And so, just trying to get everything smoothed. I think merging systems like we have, here's the cool thing. We use almost the identical tech stack already. So, at first glance, we were like, this is great.
What is that tech stack? Carbon. Practice Ignition. QuickBooks Online for the most part. We do use different tax softwares. So that was a difference. What are the two tax softwares?
So I use ProConnect Tax Online because I have a teeny tiny tax practice, and they use CCH.
Okay.
So, Yeah. So
The way I look at it, like there's two bikes in motion, right? When you're trying to change a wheel on a bike in motion, there's always going to be things that you look back and
I
be like,
love
oh,
that.
here's how we can do it better. But you got two bikes in motion that are flying down the track. You got to bring them together. Make it a tandem, right? But at the same time, you can't just stop everything, stop the customer work, and get everything right. You're never going to get it right anyways, right? That's at least Dan and I's approach. Do what we can to future-proof the integration, but at the same time, just be open and honest with the team. Like, hey, I'm going to forget to tell you something. I'm going to forget to give you a login. I'm going to forget to X, Y, or Z. And if you're
Roll with the
a good team
punches.
member, you're going to figure out, roll with the punches and tell me how to make it better next time.
I don't know how you change a bike wheel while you're moving. I don't know what kind of bike you ride. You might be able to do it with the front wheel, but
I'm
definitely
Spider-Man.
not with the back.
I'm Spider-Man, so
Spider-Man.
Right.
He
out
is.
there.
He is.
Yes, that is. Well, you got it. You got the webs. So
No, we got the whole teams together earlier today, and
We did.
made the introductions
in person,
no, we got people
still virtual.
from Michigan to Denver to Vermont to Rhode Island to
Virginia.
Massachusetts to Virginia
Yeah.
to Kentucky.
Dan
So,
still loves his office. He loves having an office and going to the office. How many people go to your offices?
probably at any given week, we probably have about 15 to 20 people that cycle through there. Not everybody at the same time. Probably about 10 max on any given day. But
Okay.
there's certain days that different teams are in there.
And Heather, did you even have an office?
My office is in my home. It's in my basement. So yes, I have an office, but it's in my home.
I am in my basement. I don't even call it an office because we used to have an office. We don't anymore. But
I never had an outside of my home office. My team is completely, virtual. They're
which
still
makes
completely
this
virtual with GrowthLab.
move a lot easier, which makes this reinforcement of joining forces a lot easier, and it's what's more portable than virtual, right? So
Right.
let's talk about this. Have you guys discussed the Oculus meetings yet? Have you guys had any Oculus meetings?
No,
So I just
I haven't.
Have you not heard this yet, Heather?
I have
Oh,
heard
yeah,
it, and
yeah.
I'm wondering when my Oculus is going to be delivered.
Well,
'Cause
we've got one in the office. We'll show it to you
Got the
next
office.
time.
The
But I just-
I can go to the office. Okay.
We had
You
two
don't
new-
need to be in person to see the Oculus in the office. She needs it at her house.
That's
I
right.
Jump
do.
on the meeting, yeah.
We're getting there. We're committed to having our first customer meeting in the metaverse by the end of the year, and that's something we
I'm
said
excited.
in early January. But I have two new customers that both have metaverse stuff in their business plan. So I said I was on with one of them last week. I said, bringing them on board. I said you have to be one of the first customers that we do our first customer meeting in the metaverse.
So, I mean, honestly, like, we are already meeting in a metaverse, so to speak. You guys are Avengers, so they're no strangers to metaverses, but we're just doing it in 2D right now.
Yeah.
We're doing it where you've got multiple people on the screen. Everybody puts their glasses on, and then they happen to look like they're in the same room. Might be animated, it might look a little bit differently, but you got a better perspective on everybody, and you can see more with it with the goggles on. I mean, I guess that kind of changes certain things about it, but
It does. I mean, we've had I'll call it like micro internal meetings, and it's challenging. Like initially, like you remember all the crap that we had to deal with trying to get whether it's Teams or Zoom or Google Meet. You always have technology.
right. What
technology
platform?
problems.
What metaverse are you going to meet in?
But
Right?
you got the metaverse, and you got to get used to which buttons to click or where in the meta space to look, to click, to make it all like actually work. So there's definitely going to be some hiccups kind of getting used to this, but
You're gonna have to pop some wheelies doing that too.
yeah, right.
I bet you can do some of the bike stuff in there because you can do anything you want in the metaverse, right?
You could sell a meta bike in the metaverse. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll ride my meta bike over there when I get my Oculus. And I can record a podcast in the metaverse one day.
There's a few people in the space that will bring
Some
all the
people
all
are
the
exploring
accounting,
with it, talking about it. I think it'll be a few years before it's commonplace.
Yeah.
But you guys are pioneers in a lot of things, so I'm not counting you out and having
Trying
this
to.
before the end of the year. Yeah.
Trying to.
Pioneers joining forces. Cool. Well, I think that's a good wrap up for the day. We'll end on the one wheel here. as we coast along to the finish line. So who is, well, I guess one last thing. You guys mentioned the name Todd Robinson on my notes here. I didn't bring up everything. Who is Todd Robinson?
Oh, Todd Robinson was the guy that we drank CPA IPA with.
Oh, okay. So you did bring him up.
Got to know Heather, but he was at the time he was at QuickBooks Online and helping accountants get into QBO. And like again, it kind of sucked. QBO kind of sucked, but Todd Robinson was amazing. And not only did he get us to buy into QBO, he introduced us to Heather, and here we are today.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure he got his shout out. I guess I glazed over when you said his name before. Well, thank you both for joining me on this lovely Friday afternoon.
No, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
It's been fun.
Jeez.
And I guess I'll see you in a couple of
I
weeks.
will. I'll see you a couple times in a couple weeks.
Yes.
That'll be some fun. All right. Peace out. I'm just really trying to envision the bikes moving, because you could hop over from one bike to another and then change the tires out and then hop back onto your bike.
Have you seen those guys that just like they're not stunt bikers, but they just they can like hop on top of a pole and then like hop like 6 feet to another pole? Like my kid
I
was
have
watching
seen
these videos.
stuff like that on
You can
YouTube.
look it up on YouTube. I saw a guy do it in real life. Like it was crazy.
Don't rule
But
anything.
He
out
actually
here.
jumped off of the top of a shipping container with his front tire not on the bike. He took it off
Okay.
and then jumped, landed it, and then started doing a wheelie around the circle.
I want to see you doing that next
Yeah.
time in person.
So you ride it like a unit. So is he riding it like a unicycle?
Yeah, he was just like a Papa Wheelie the whole time.
So there's your answer. There's your
Yeah,
answer.
that's
that
it.
We have to ride our bikes like a unicycle while we're trying to figure out.
Temporarily, yeah. At least while you try to figure this out. Or don't rule that out. Like if they start asking you to really just start doing flips or backflips here, we know that what's going on in Steven's head.
Wow, what a great episode. And wouldn't it be great if you could earn CPE credit for that? Now you can. Visit earmarkcpe.com to sign up for free and earn free CPE credit for listening to this show. That's earmarkcpe.com.